welcome to another episode of You Don't Know Sport. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. How things going at the store?
Hey, business is booming right now. Let's hope it keeps up that way. We're masking it to keep our elderly and at-risk folks safe, but business has really been good.
Awesome, man. Hey, I heard, so we have a phone interview today, right?
We do, and this is quite an interview. This is going to be one of the more dramatic and unbelievable stories that we've had on our show up to date. So, why don't we give my friend Harriet a call and see what she's got to say?
All right, let's get to it.
Your call will be answered in the order it was received.
Well, hey, folks, we're here with my good friend Harriet McFeely, and Harriet lives up in Nebraska. And all of a sudden, I can't remember the name of your town.
Hastings,
Nebraska. Thank you, Harriet. And Harriet has her own Bigfoot museum, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show. I want to make sure we get a chance to plug her museum. But how are you doing today, Harriet?
I am just terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, I know we recorded this before, but we had a little error. So thank you for joining us again.
Yes.
Well, you're welcome. Yeah. I'm really happy to be here.
This is our second round with Harriet because the first time we had some technical difficulties. So I'm sure it's going to be even a better interview this time.
I hope so.
But Harriet has a story that she told me over a year ago, and it so amazed and intrigued me. I asked her if she would be willing to come on and tell the story again, and I think she's not going to use names in this story other than hers, but it's quite a story, and I think you guys you're all gonna find it amazing. So Harriet, I'll let you take it away, and we may pop in once or twice with a question or two, but why don't you go ahead and tell us your story?
Okay, thank you. This happened to me a few years ago. As Jim said, I live in Nebraska, but I go to Colorado quite often camping. And I went with some friends, and one lady that was a friend of ours, we really wanted her to go, but she had been diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver, which was kind of unusual because she does not drink. But anyway, she had been getting progressively worse and worse and worse, and they had told her that it was going to be terminal. They had done everything and nothing worked. And so anyway, in fact, it's funny because it was 4th of July weekend, and so there was 5 women and we were going to go to Colorado, and we were going to go camping. So I called my friend a month or so ahead of time so she could plan, and I said, we really want you to go to Colorado with us. And she said, I am so sick, I can't go. She was in so much pain from this cirrhosis that she just couldn't go. And she'd had a job previously, a very good professional job, and she had to quit because of the pain from the cirrhosis. And she wasn't a really tall person. I'd say maybe 5'3" or 4", something like that. And anyway, her stomach was so bloated that she looked like she was 9 months pregnant. She could not find any clothes to fit her. The only thing she could wear was like men's sweatpants because she was so swollen. So anyway, I said, oh, I really want you to go with us. It won't be the same if we go camping without you. And she said, I just can't do it. I'm in so much pain. And I felt really, really bad about that. So anyway, time was drawing close to when we were going to go to Colorado. And about every week I would call her and I'd say, oh, how are you doing? Do you possibly think you could go? And she said, I just can't. I'm in so much pain, I can't even hardly navigate. Well, I had a small little camper, and I said to her, if you just go You can go in that camper. You can lay down anytime, take a nap. It's got a full bed. It's got a refrigerator and a bathroom. I said you could eat if you're hungry or go to the bathroom or whatever. But, oh, we really want you to go. And, again, she said, I just can't do it. So we were all really, really disappointed because we had been friends for a long time and we'd always gone together. So anyway, it was about 2 or 3 days before I was going to go without her. And she called me up and she said, Harriet, I'm feeling just a little bit better. I think I can go with you. And, oh, we were so happy. So the day came and she did go. And I watched her like a hawk all the time to make sure she was okay. And I tried to wait on her and get whatever it was she needed. And so she went with us. And the girls, we had a big tent. It was, I think, about maybe 10 by 10 square. And so we all slept in that at night. And we had our cots around the outside edge of the tent. And we were like head to toe, all the way around. And so anyway, in the daytime, we would just take short hikes because of my friend. And maybe be gone for like a half hour or so, and that would be it. And then we would go back to the camp, and we would just kind of hang out there. And so we did that a couple times a day, and she wasn't doing too bad, but I was really watching her. And so that day, we had been out a few times like that. And so night came, and we had a nice supper, and we were sitting around the campfire just visiting. And it was getting to be about 9:30 or 10, so we were going to go to bed. And everybody, this is kind of gross, but it's an important part of the story. All of the women headed out in an opposite direction, everybody to go to the bathroom before we went to bed. And we all dug a little hole and went to the bathroom, and then we covered it up and went back to the tent. And so when my friend went out, she went about, 15 or 20 feet away from the tent, and there was a few trees around, not a whole lot, and they weren't really, really dense. You could easily walk between them. And so when she walked up, there was this huge big tree there. It was like some kind of an evergreen, I don't know. Anyway, so she squatted down to go to the bathroom, and when she stood up, the tree was gone. Which that was kind of unusual. And
yeah, to say the least.
Yeah. And she said to whoever was the tree, she said, okay, you guys, knock it off. Could I just have some privacy here? And of course, she didn't get an answer back. And then she came into the tent and told us that story, and we all had a good laugh over that one. But so anyway, then we went to bed, and we were all tired because we'd been out in the fresh air and sunshine all day, and we all went to sleep. But my friend could not sleep because she did not tell us that she was in just excruciating pain. And so anyway, she was lying, her feet was right next to my head. We were end to end, and she couldn't sleep. And about maybe, I would say 50 feet from our tent, there was a little tiny stream that ran kind of along, kind of parallel there. And the stream was only about 5 or 6 feet wide and maybe 6 inches deep. It was just really little. And so anyway, after we went to sleep and she was lying there, she heard, I think, some of the Bigfoot walking from the stream up toward our tent. And she could hear it because they were crunching on the leaves. And so anyway, they came up to our tent. And the tent, if you could imagine, it was kind of shaped like a house or like a garage. It was pointed down the center. And so anyway, the Bigfoot went up right at the head of the tent where the top meets the side. And they started tapping. And they went, it started by her head, and this is what they did, the sound. Like that. And they did that 3 or 4 or 5 times. and they paused, and then they moved on, and I was the next one that was next to her. And so they came to my head.
Sorry to interrupt you, Harry, but nobody heard this at this point but her, right?
That's right, because we were all just sound asleep.
Right. Okay.
And even the one woman that was also with us, she has a pit bull dog, and that dog would hear everything. And whenever the Bigfoot would be walking around our tent, the dog would always growl. And then she would say to the dog, "Hey, knock it off." And then it would. But the dog was sound asleep also. He never even moved. And so anyway, then they came to where I was sleeping, and they were tapping on the top of the tent again, and this is what they did. And I never heard it at all. So then they came to the corner of the tent, and they went around the corner, and there was 2 more women sleeping there, and they did the same thing. They tapped on the top of the tent where the top meets the side. There's like a metal rod that goes, all the way around the frame. But none of us heard it, and the dog never made one peep at all. And so anyway, they walked all the way around, and they came back to where my friend was lying on her cot, and she was the one that was sick. And so they went right back to where they had started from, and they started this rhythmic tapping, and they just kept doing it and doing it. She thought it was maybe about 10 or 15 minutes that they kept that tapping right by her head. And finally, she said to them, "Would you please stop now, because you're scaring me?" And bingo, just like that, it quit. It was dead silent. And then she could hear their footsteps as they were walking back toward the stream. So we were all still sound asleep, except my friend. And she said she went into such a deep, deep sleep that and by this time it was about midnight, I think. We're kind of estimating. But anyway, she went into a really deep sleep and never moved. She never even moved at all and so morning came, and I'm always the first one up, and I got up, and it was such a beautiful day. I went outside the tent, and I was just standing there. Oh, the sunshine and the blue sky. It was absolutely just perfect. And then one by one, the other women came out of the tent, and we were just kind of standing around the entrance of the tent, just visiting, commenting how beautiful it was. And my friend was the very last one to come out. And when she came out, she was just crying and crying. She was sobbing. And I was so shocked. Well, I wasn't really, but I thought, well, I'm going to be taking her to a fast trip to the hospital. That was my thought. And so I went up to her and I said, "What's wrong? Are you okay? What's wrong?" And she just continued to cry. And all of us were standing around her. And she was holding her hands up in the air as high as she could hold them. And in the midst of her crying, she said, "I've been healed. I'm healed." We're going, "What? What?" And she said, "I'm healed." And she said, "Look at my stomach." And she grabbed my hand. And before, her stomach was so swollen, it was absolutely as hard as a rock. And when I pushed on her stomach, it was just as soft and nice as anything. And all the swelling had gone down. When she went up there, she was wearing a man's sweatpants because she couldn't get any other pants on. And when she came out, her pants were so big and baggy, she couldn't even hold them on. We had to get a rope and put around her waist to hold her pants on. And she just kept crying, and everybody was over pushing on her stomach, and it was truly soft. And she kept saying, "I'm healed." She said, "It doesn't even hurt anymore. I feel fine." And she was just, just yelling and crying. And we were all standing there like, how did that happen? And so, she just kept on. She was fine, absolutely fine. And so anyway, then we were trying to figure it out. How did this happen? And so we were trying to go back piece by piece, and she talked about this rhythm, this tapping that she kept hearing on the tent. And so I went on the outside around to the back of the tent where her head had been, and I looked, and there was 2 long reeds, like they're a water plant, and they're kind of jointed, and each section it's kind of like a straw, and each section is about maybe a foot or a foot and a half long, and then there's a joint, and then there's another section. We have those in Nebraska, but I don't know what they are. And anyway, there was 2 of those pieces of this jointed grass or, reed or whatever it is, and it was laying right exactly outside the tent where her head was, and it was they were laid across each other like an X or like a cross. And so I went over and I picked it up and I said, "Mommy, is it like this?" And I take that name out. And anyway, I said, "Did it sound like this?" So I started tapping on the top of the tent, right where she had been lying. And she said, "That's it. That's exactly the sound I heard. That is the tapping." And so that part we figured out. The other thing we couldn't figure out was this healing. How did that happen? And so then we just kept talking amongst us, and we thought that possibly when she had gone to the bathroom the night before, it was around 10, that evidently the Bigfoot were around, but it was so dark we just didn't see them. And we think that possibly they might have smelled that she was sick from her urine. And, like every now and then you'll hear about a dog that can detect cancer or something like that.
Right.
That's what we thought.
Right.
And that was the absolutely only logical explanation. And we thought that he had smelled that she was not right, that she was sick. And we were thinking that as he walked around the tent the first time, that he tapped where she was, maybe to smell around. And then he came to me and he tapped and he kept going. He went all the way around the tent, and that when he was tapping, that he was smelling us, but she was the one that was sick. And in the end, he went right back to where she was. And then he kept tapping for she thought it was about 10 minutes. And so somehow we thought this Bigfoot and his tapping has got something to do with her healing. And so anyway, the rest of the day we went ahead. We went hiking. We were all over in the mountains. We were down to Jim. We were down to your museum and went through that and loved it. And then we went across the highway. I don't know, it's down about a mile, and we ate gigantic chili dogs and French fries and Coke and everything. And I kept saying, "Ooh, Tam, nope." I kept saying, "Ooh, be careful." I said, "Don't eat all that stuff." And she said, "I'm okay. I'm just fine. It doesn't matter." And I went, "Oh Lord," it scared me. She was eating, onions.
She knew she was healed for sure.
Yeah, she was absolutely, and also she was still wearing the rope around her pants because she couldn't even begin. I would say she probably lost 10 to 12 inches around her waist just overnight, because she went from looking like she was 100% pregnant to normally she weighed, I'd say maybe 120 pounds, not very much. She wasn't very big, not very tall. And so anyway, we had a great time with all those chili dogs. And then we went back and we were hiking up all around the mountains, different areas, and had dinner and everything that night. She was perfect, absolutely perfect. And so that was, I've never in my entire life witnessed a miracle, but I have no doubt that was a miracle. But somehow those Bigfoot were connected with it. And so anyway, were you going to say something?
Carry on. I'm hoping you're going to share what happened when she got home, when she went back to the doctor.
Yes, I'm going to do that in just one little second. We were all this time, this is like, 3 or 4 years later, we're still trying to figure this mystery out. And so we were wondering, could the Bigfoot possibly be like a shaman, like the Native Americans have? And so when I got home, I called a man that was a Native American. He was a friend of mine. And I said to him, I don't want to insult you, but I was just wondering, could a Bigfoot be a shaman? And he said very matter-of-factly, oh, yeah, that happens all the time. Like I said, does?
Wow.
And I didn't know that before. And so anyway, then this was the 4th of July weekend that we were there. It was a long weekend. And she had a doctor's appointment scheduled for about the 1st of October. And so she had it written on her calendar, and she went to her appointment. And when she walked in the doctor's office, she said, everybody just stopped. They quit talking. And they were all just staring at her. And she goes, what's wrong? She says, I think this is the right date, isn't it? And they just stood there. And they said, yeah, it's right. And so they gave her this really, really extensive physical to see, how her blood was and all the chemicals and things. But the reason that they had stopped talking was because they never, ever thought that she would be back for that appointment. When they gave it to her, they thought she would be dead.
Wow.
So anyway, they did all these tests, and the doctor came in and said, if you just wait a few minutes, I'll have all the results. So she said, okay. So a few minutes later, the doctor came in, and she had a clipboard and all these facts and figures, and she says, well, I'll just read you your report. So she goes, your blood pressure is perfect, your cholesterol is perfect, your potassium is perfect, your all these things, I don't even know what they are, all these different chemicals, every single thing was perfect. And this was from the 4th of July till October. And the doctor said to her, she said, I hope you don't mind my asking, but I was just wondering, what did you do? You're absolutely perfect. And she said, and on top of that, you don't even have cirrhosis anymore. And my friend, she was surprised, but she wasn't surprised because she knew she was healed. And so she said to the doctor, well, I don't mind telling you at all what I did. But she said, if I tell you, you'll never believe it. And the doctor said, well, just try me. So she told her the whole story and the Bigfoot and the healing and everything. And the doctor just looked at her and she said, well, I have to honestly tell you that in my practice, I have heard of a lot of miracles and a lot of healings. But she said, I got to tell you, I have never heard of anybody that got healed by a Bigfoot. And she said to me, it's obvious that's exactly what happened. She said, you're fine. You don't need anything. She doesn't take vitamins or nothing. Absolutely nothing. She's healed. So now that has been, like I said, it's been about, I think it's been 5 years now, and she's perfect.
Wow.
No symptoms, no nothing.
Wow. Well, my skeptic friend Josh, what do you have to say about that story?
I was just, so you guys, there's no, you didn't make any visual contact with the Bigfoot, right?
No, but we heard them walking around, and when we would be in the camp at night, every now and then they'd take pine cones and they'd toss under our chairs, letting us know they were there. And we would do gifting, and every now and then they'd leave things for us. So I know that they were around. And we'd find footprints and stuff like that, but we never actually, well, she saw one face to face, but she didn't know it.
Right.
And when was this? Like year-wise?
It was about 5 years ago, and it was on the 4th of July weekend.
All right.
So you guys must have been not too far from the store if you came to the store for the museum.
You know what? It's really hard for me to tell how far we are because the way the roads wind around and stuff like that. But it only took us, I'd say maybe, 10 or 15 minutes to get from where we were camping to where your outpost is.
Okay, so you could have been in like Pikes National, or you could have been over there by Evans Wilderness area. like over by the
You know what?
the
I
big mountain.
knew we were, because every time that I went up there, we went up and down hills and around curves and this and that, and I could not find my way in or out if my life depended on it.
Yeah, it all looks
But
the same up here.
it shows that there's a lot of activity in our area, which we know, but this is
Yes,
more
definitely.
confirmation that there is a lot of activity around here.
Right, I agree.
Did you happen to take
And
any photos of the tracks or anything while you were there?
Did we what?
Take any photos of the tracks?
Let's see. I don't think I did that time, but before that, I had seen tracks. In fact, I had taken a photo of a track of one of the kids, I think, because it was only about 5 or 6 inches long.
Okay.
How high would you say that tent was? The top of the tent where they were tapping? I mean, you could stand up in the tent, obviously.
Oh yeah, easy. Well, and a lot of times, her husband would go, "You could stand up easy." I would say it was probably about 8 feet, and then it came down just like a garage, and then the walls. I went back so I could kind of get this in perspective. And I'm only 4'10", and I could just barely reach that supporting rod that went all the way around. So I think that was maybe about 6 feet tall. But that was on the edge. But when you're standing in the middle, it was a lot taller.
So my reason for asking is for this thing to be standing there tapping on the top of the tent, it had to be at least 6 feet tall, probably 7 or taller, I would think.
I would think it was taller than that. I would say maybe 7 to 8 feet. Because when she went to the bathroom and we came back the next day and we were talking about it, we were trying to figure out about how tall it was according to what she saw was a tree. And that was kind of what we came up with.
Yeah, if she thought it was a tree, it had to be tall. And it does make me wonder, and this sounds crazy, but it makes me wonder if the Sasquatch disguised himself as a tree so that she would think it was, and then he moved away.
Well, that's partly true. What it was, there was a big tree right there already. And like I said, I don't know, it was some kind of an evergreen. And anyway, and he was standing right next to the tree. And so probably, I would say only maybe 3/4 or a half of his body was showing. But he stood so still, he never moved a muscle, nothing. And so when she was pulling her pants up, she was looking down. And when she was standing upright, that half of the tree was gone.
Well, this confirms something else for me, too, that Sasquatch, far from being a violent creature, has parts of their character and personalities that are compassionate, because they healed her.
Yes, they did. There's no doubt about it. And you know what? I am a Christian, and I have thought about that so many times because I never considered the possibility that a Bigfoot might be a Christian or some branch or sent by God or something. I don't know. That really scrambled my brain for a long time, but I think comes down to it, you either accept it or you don't.
Sure.
Oh, bless you.
Well, you were there,
Sorry.
and if this isn't third or fourth hand, this is first hand. You were there and you saw it.
Well, I mean, it is secondhand in the fact that you were saying your friend saw the tree. You never saw the creature yourself.
No, because we all went out in separate ways.
Yeah.
And we were all out about, I'd say 20 or 25 feet, something like that, away from the camp. And when she came back, she told us what had happened, and we all laughed over it because it was really funny. And then the way she yelled at him, like, "Okay, you guys, give me a little privacy around here."
Yeah.
So we laughed. Funny. And it didn't hurt anything.
Right. Were you in a campground, or did you just go out in the wilderness and set up your tent?
We were out in the wilderness, but my other friend that lives in Colorado, she goes to that same location often, and I'm certain that they know her and they recognize her.
Sure.
Knows that she's not going to hurt him or anything. And,
right.
We were all women up there. We had no men to take care of us. We had no guns, no knives, no mace, no nothing. That was it.
You're saying your friend goes back to the same campground?
She does fairly often, yes.
It'd be cool to get the name of it if just for the map or whatever.
Well, she said it's not a campground. They just camp in the woods.
No, it's way up high. I know it's high. But, yeah, it's just a place that she found, and it does have a lot of activity. So I know she would have a stroke if anybody knew where it was at. But her secret was safe with me because, like I said, I couldn't find it again if my life depended on it.
Huh. Good deal. All right.
Well, I mean, as I said, this was an amazing story, and the first one I'd ever heard of Bigfoot healing someone. And I've heard other rumors, but I've never heard anyone actually tell a story like this story. So
yeah, that's the first time I've heard anything like this too since we've been doing it.
Well, except for one thing. When I talked to that Native American man, it was so common and ordinary to him, it was no big deal. And the other thing is, I wanted to say, later that year, I went to Bluff Creek, California, and it was Bob Gimlin's birthday. And I was invited to his birthday party. And afterwards, there was a group of us, maybe, I don't know, a dozen people. We were all just standing around in the kitchen. Nobody knew each other. We were from all over different parts of the country. And they started talking about things. And so they were telling their really unusual, amazing stories. And so after about 5 or 10 minutes, I said, well, I've got a story to top all of them. So I heard that one. And you know what? In that group, there was 2 other people that had a healing. One guy one man, I don't even know where he was from. He had a healing also, and his had something to do with his liver, and also like hers. And I'm not sure if he had cirrhosis because he didn't go into that much detail. But the other lady that was there, that was her story that had happened to her about a year before. She had a really, really, really bad pinched nerve in her hip, and she could barely walk. And they'd done everything, chiropractor and all that, and nothing helped. And so she was scheduled for surgery the very next week. And so they talked her into going camping, which she was just like my friend. She said, if I lay down on that cot, she said, you guys will have to come and help me get up because I won't be able to get up by myself. So they said, okay. And same thing. It was the tapping, and they were walking around the tent. She could hear them. And then she also went into like a deep sleep. And we wondered if that was that they zapped her so she could sleep. I don't know. But anyway, the lady, when she woke up in the morning, she didn't even think about it. She just got up out of bed and walked outdoors, and she was eating breakfast and everything else. And the people that she was with said, well, how'd you get out here? Because they were waiting to help her. And she said, well, I just got up, out of bed and walked out. And all of a sudden it hit her that I walked out here. She was amazed. And so that was on a weekend. And Monday morning she called her doctor, and she said, well, I'm calling to cancel my appointment for surgery. And he said, why is that? And she said, well, I don't need it. And he said, well, just because it's feeling okay right now, that's going to come back, maybe in a month or 2 or whatever. And he said, you are going to really be hurting when that happens. And she says, well, I'll just take my chances. And anyway, she's never, ever had anything either since then. And the man that talked about his liver, he hasn't either. So,
and she had the same tapping. So that's that's important to me.
So I did have one more question about the campground. When you got there, did you unpack the car and set up the tent right near the car, or did you guys hike in?
Oh no, we set up the tent. Let's see. I would say the cars were maybe 15 or 20 feet from the tent. It was close.
So you guys
could see it right up.
You guys like drove and then just pulled off, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You were down a normal road.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
There's all kinds of little places along the road where you.
There are out around Bailey. There's lots of places. Like
yeah. Like especially with all the old mines.
What'd you say?
Especially with all the old mines and stuff like that, there's a lot of roads that go off to like that.
Yeah, and then but where we pulled off to park, it wasn't like a place that like the state makes a pull off or anything.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't
it was just along it was just along the edge of the road, and we could pull off enough that our cars were just fine.
Well, that's encouraging to me that this happened near Bailey, and I'm going to tell people who get sick to go out and go camping.
Yeah.
See if a Bigfoot will come heal them.
No kidding. That was the most unusual story, and when I came home for months after that, I could not sleep because it was so profound. It was like I've never in my entire life ever witnessed a miracle, but I'm sure I did. And we all did.
Yeah. Well, this has been phenomenal, and speaking for Josh and I both, we're very grateful for you giving us your time again to tell the story.
Thank you very much for sharing. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm really glad to tell that story. And you know what? I told it not a whole lot of times because I have to keep everybody's anonymity.
Right.
But the thing is, as always happens, half of the people absolutely accept it, just like, right off the bat. The other people give me this rolling the eyes look, which you've probably seen. And I thought, you know what? It doesn't matter to me because I saw it. And I can really understand that is extremely hard to accept.
Yeah. We get that all the time just about Bigfoot, period. And I think we've gotten used to it now that it really doesn't bother me like you, Harriet. We know what we know. We know what we've seen. Yeah. Nobody's going to change our minds about that.
That's absolutely right. That's correct. So, but I tell you what, when I went up to the mountains for the 4th of July, I sure didn't expect fireworks like that.
No. Well, thank you for coming on the show, and I'm sure our listeners are going to hopefully have some comments after this one.
And thank you for letting me ask some questions.
Awesome.
What did you say?
I said thank you for letting me ask questions, too.
Oh, that's fine. I don't mind at all. The main thing is I have to keep my friends' anonymity.
Sure.
So other than that, you can ask me anything.
We respect that. That's no problem.
So, well, and you two guys have a super nice day, and thank you for making mine.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Harriet. You have a great day, too.
Okay, thank you. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, as I told you, Josh, this was going to be a one-of-a-kind interview. What do you have to say? What do you think?
There was no... for me, my thing is there was no, visual confirmation on her end.
Right.
And, and she was initiated enough to take pictures before, but there was no picture evidence of the event this time. Was another thing that stuck out to me. And the third was, from what she was saying, they said they were up high, right? So they were high up in the mountains and they were right off the road. That sounds to me like Ganola Pass.
That could be. It could have been up there. I I have some other ideas about where I think they were, but 15 to 20 minutes from Bailey is only so many places that could be.
That you could actually drive up and be up high.
Well, she says high. I'm not sure what she meant by that. Maybe she meant like Guanella, but I think
she also said high traffic too. So that was another thing that stuck out with me in Guanella Pass is that,
of course,
and
you wouldn't think to take pictures. You know, who would have thought to take a picture of this woman before and after, because they never expected anything to happen.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the footprints.
Oh, the footprints, yeah.
Like she knew to take pictures
how often
before.
People don't think about it, and I put myself in that category. I've been places where I found a track and never even thought to pull my phone out and take a picture. I don't know why.
Huh. And see, the other thing, the reason why I keep on pulling up the Guanella Pass thing is that's a highly trafficked road, and, you know, people just cruise that. So, I mean, anybody could have messed with her. Like, been
anybody
tapping
could have
on
messed with her, but
like tapping the
not
tent and
anybody
stuff.
could have healed her. That's the critical point of this whole story, I think, is she was healed that night somehow.
And you know me, like, my reporter brain, that's the problem with anonymity, right? Like, there's nobody to follow up or ask. Like, I don't... There's no picture or evidence of her friend before or after that I know of. Like, you know, of course she said she's protecting her friend's identity, which is cool because, like, we know that not everybody that comes on the show likes to give out that kind of information, you know?
Sure.
But I'm just saying from a skeptic viewpoint, you know, like, I mean, it could happen, it couldn't.
Skeptic.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, that's...
Well, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. And it's always better when we can have some scientific proof. I'll give you an example before we end our show here. But you and I have talked about this. I found some scat when I was out scouting for one of our summer events. And just a quick aside there, anybody who's interested in doing an outing, who's a listener, every weekend in July and then for a whole weekend in August, we're doing outings. If you go to our website under the events page, you can see all this information and register. But we were scouting for one of these outings just to check it out and see what was back in this area. And I found some scat that is 48 inches long. And there's no known mammal that makes a turd 48 inches long. And so I have a new friend who I've been talking to who is trying to put me in touch with another scientist to have this sample analyzed, because I would much rather be able to say, here's this scat, you can see it, it's been analyzed, and this was the analysis. That's always better than just having a sample that has never been tested.
I mean, that's 4 feet.
It's 4 feet long. 4 feet long.
So you found a poo that's the size of a small child.
Yeah. And it was dried. It still has some mass to it, but it was dried. And I'm working on getting a display case and all that. But what I plan to do in the museum is have photographs of different kinds of scat, bear, mountain lion, elk, and then have this scat in a box that people can open and look at. Obviously, it's not going to be open to the air. It'll be sealed and everything. It's not going to be gross. I mean, it's poo. It is gross. But,
I mean, that's what I was going to say. You should just take a picture of it and leave it in the store.
No. Got to have the actual evidence.
It's going to smell like turd.
Well, it's going to be sealed. You won't smell anything. But I'm hoping we can get it analyzed. That, to me, would be the best of all options.
Was there, hair on it or anything?
No, there doesn't seem to be any hair. I haven't cut into it yet, but...
no, of course, on the outside or anything.
No, because we're pretty sure Sasquatch doesn't eat hair. Other animals, other predators do. The Sasquatch when they make a kill, they pretty much rip the hide off and just eat the meat.
But they're covered in hair.
Huh?
But they're covered in hair.
They're covered in hair, but I don't know why that would be in their poo. They don't have hair on the inside.
Well,
so,
I mean, it happens on toilet seats. I mean, it would,
Sure.
happen, like,
I mean, there could be a hair from the Sasquatch in there, but the strange thing is that it's all in one line. So when they squat, they walk. Obviously, it wasn't in a pile, so that's kind of a weird thing. But yeah, that's we hope to have that analyzed and then on display in the museum in the next couple of weeks. But whatever it takes, Josh, to convince people, we'll do it.
I can't wait to see what you come up with the results on that.
Yeah. We'll talk about it on the show.
You guys got anything coming up? Did we ask her what her store name was?
Harriet has I believe it's Crossroads of America Bigfoot Museum, something like that, but it's in Hastings, Nebraska. I encourage anyone who's going through Nebraska to stop. It's in Harriet's home. I think it's in her basement. And she's built this, like us, she's built this from scratch on her own. And I've not been to it yet, to my shame. She's been to mine many times. So, but yeah, she's got a bona fide museum, a Bigfoot museum in Hastings, Nebraska.
Are there any forests in Nebraska?
There are.
Huh. Every time I think of cornfields and just open plains.
Corn huskers, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I lived in North Texas too, and it's it's pretty flat.
Right. Well, she built it there, not necessarily because all of her research is around there. She's done most of her research in Colorado, but that's where she lives. So she just built it where she lives.
Yeah, I really thank her for coming on. That's a very interesting story.
Yeah. Well, we've got lots more interviews to come from witnesses who come in the store, so it's going to be great upcoming episodes, hopefully. I don't know if you have anything else to add today, Josh. I think that's all I had to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's it. I guess that's it for the show then. Everybody, please continue to subscribe to us on YouTube. That really helps. Also, we're available on all the platforms that do podcasts now. So look for us there, and be sure to tell your friends about us.
Yeah, and send us your comments and questions. We always appreciate those.
And you know what? Like I found out today, Jim, what I don't know?
You don't know squat.
That's right.